Hey everyone, it's Julian, and today I'm going to be showing you how to make minimal tech house like Cuartero and Hector Couto. As usual, you can get the full project files, samples, MIDI, presets, all of that from this video right at the top of the description. If you have Patreon, my Patreon, check there because it's already available and has been since yesterday. And yeah, let's dive in. We're at 128 BPM. The first thing that we've got going on here would be these chord stabs, which sound like this. So these are the style of chord stabs that you hear in this type of music. I'll show you the actual chords these are playing first are really simple. They're both just playing G sharp minor. You can see this one is just G sharp, B, D sharp, same chord down here. So just straightforward G sharp minor chord. And then same deal with this one. So yeah, you typically want to work with minor chords in this style. Usually major chords just won't have the right vibe. But you can see it's just like super simple, just straight in the key that we're in. And that's all you need because these are really more rhythm. It's really more like where you're putting them in the groove and how we have like one here, for example, which is, very bouncy. And then one which is just it's like the contrast between those two elements. That's what you want to shoot for, rather than like having the most crazy notes. Now, for the first one with the sound, it's made using analog. These are both made with analog. You can see this one is a saw wave, two saw waves actually. The first one's an octave down, and then they're going into a bandpass filter, which has an envelope on it. And so that's what's creating the pluck. If I turn this resonator off for a second. So that little bow, how you hear it kind of, the filter going down like that, that's from this envelope. Then we have the amp envelope just set like that. And then from there, we have this resonator. So the resonator is a really great way to add texture to these chords. Here's without it. And then with it. So you can hear it adds this cool metallic sort of overtone and texture to the chords. And so what I've done here is I've tuned this just to G sharp minor. You can see it's just G sharp, and then we have a minor third, a fifth, and then another G sharp because I did plus 12. And then this is on the B setting. The B setting tends to be a little bit more metallic. But yeah, and then again, that's just a cool way to make this sound like a lot more exciting and give it a more unique texture that you can kind of shape on your own, rather than like if you're just working with a saw wave into a filter, it's gonna sound like a saw wave going into a filter. But this allows you to create a sound that's a bit more like your own and a little bit more tweakable. And then we just have a bit of chorus and a bit of reverb, just giving the sound some space. And then I just have a drum bus, which is fattening it up. You can also see I have the transients turned up, so that's actually making this kind of a bit more punchy. Here's without that. And then with it to show you the difference. So it actually kind of makes this like have a little bit more attack to it. And yeah, and then I just have a high pass filter on that. And then for the sound on the second one, like I said, this is also made with analog. So this one is also just one saw wave actually, and a little bit of white noise. And then those are going into a bandpass filter as well. I don't have the envelope on it, but that little like movement that you're hearing with the filter is, you can see I've just drawn this little automation. And you'll notice the second time it comes around, it's a little bit smaller. So it's just kind of like having that big one and then the small one. It's like a little nuance like that can kind of change it and make this feel very lively in the track. But yeah, and then the amp envelope is set like that. Then we just have a bit of vibrato. Actually, quite a bit of vibrato. You can really hear that, like that kind of warbly thing that's happening. And then I have a bit of unison as well, which is adding to that. Then we have some chorus and some reverb, just like the first stab, for some space. With this one, the reverb's really short. Like usually I might do a longer stab or a longer reverb if I had something that was just like a little stab like this hitting in one or two places. But with this one, I wanted it to be a bit shorter and a bit tighter. So that's the idea there. And then we just have a bit of drum bus on this one to beef it up a bit and bring out all the effects and stuff. And then finally, we just have a high pass filter. And that's it for the stabs. From there, we move to the bass line. this is a really simple bass line in G sharp minor. It's just 3 notes, and it's mostly just droning on this G sharp here, and then it goes up to B, which is the minor third. That was also in that G sharp minor chord that you just saw, and then it goes down in a few places to F sharp, and that would be the minor 7th, which sounds complicated, but it's literally just 2 semitones down from the root note, and then typically, if you were going to call it the 7th, you would put it up an octave as well, but it's still the same, like, musical note. But yeah, real simple bass line, and then it's just kind of how it fits off in the groove. And also another thing is just creating like a bass line like this that has a lot of energy to it. When I listen to these tracks, that's really, it's not that it's like a crazy hard to make bass sound or a crazy hard to make bass line. What these people do very well, that a lot of people have a hard time recreating in their own tracks, is just making that like constant like groove that feels like it's picking up. And like it's constantly going. It would be really easy to write a bass line like this that would just be boring and would make your track feel really flat. But if you have something like this, and you really put emphasis into like, you know, making it move like that, that's the secret there with the notes. Now for the sound with this one is made with analog, and what it is it's a saw wave and a square wave. So this is kind of the best way to make like a really fat bass note, because you're basically just covering most of the harmonics. Like you can hear when we turn off the filter here, this is a very big, very harmonically rich sound. And then if I turn off either one of these oscillators, you see, it's not quite as harmonically rich. So when you put them together, you really get the fullest sound, and it's really good for a bass line like this. So I've taken those, and then those are going into a low pass filter. And then that's filtering that back, so it's a little bit deeper. We have a little bit of an envelope on that as well to make it kind of plucky, and the amp envelope is set like that. And then, other than that, I just have a bit of drum bus, which is really fattening the sound up. Here's without it. And then with it, so you can hear how important this is to really make the bass sound powerful. And then we just have this EQ, which is cutting out and boosting a bit of space to make it kind of just fit a little bit better in with the kick and with the rest of the track. And then after that, we have the kick, which this one really is just more about the type of sound. When I was listening to these guys' tracks, I noticed they tend to use a 909 kick like this. This is actually a kick from a 909 drum machine that's been processed a bit. And this is what you want to use, just this deep, fat, round kind of kick like this that still has that perfect like click to it. So it'll fit in the mix right. And yeah, so we just got this one. I've got it going through a bit of drum bus, which is just a good way to make your kick really punch. Here's without it. Then with it, you can hear it really brings out that like that same thing that's going to make it punch through the rest of the mix. And yeah, and then the kick and the bass are in a group together just with a little bit of saturation, just to push them a little bit closer together. You guys have probably seen this one if you've watched my other Minimal House videos, but here's without this. And with it. So you see what this does? It's a very simple step, but it's one you really don't want to forget, because it's going to make a big difference in the fatness of your overall low end and your bass line and your kick and your track as a whole. It's just going to sound better if your bass line and kick really fit together nicely like this. This is really one of those things that I've noticed makes the difference between like an okay track and a great professional track. And yeah, then after that we have the percussions, which starts with this clap. So this is just, you know, probably the most straightforward out of all these percussions. It's just the clap just hitting on the 2 and 4. The main thing to keep in mind is just getting a really fat one like this, that you can hear like will fit nicely over the kick. After that we have what I call this metal noise here. So this is just this little percussion that plays, you can see, pretty sparsely. What it is it's just some white noise going into a bandpass filter. And then I'm putting like an echo after that. And that's creating that metal overtone. So here's without the echo. And with it. So yeah, the thing with this is basically we're just putting a little bit of envelope on the bandpass. That's how you get that like kind of clicky, more percussive sound coming out of it. And I also have an LFO on that filter cutoff so that it's kind of changing a little each time, as you can hear. And then with the echo, the secret here is just to use a really fast time. If you set it really fast like this, you get this kind of like cool metallic effect. You can even make it like more sharp if you want to. It almost becomes kind of like a flanger. But I'm just using that to add some texture to this. And then finally, I just have a bit of drum mess, which is just making it a little bit more impactful, a little bit stronger. This really helps to take it from sounding like just a synth into really sounding like, you know, some percussion. After that, we have this little bell, which sounds like this. So the way I made this is I took this little bell sound and I actually put it through a pitch envelope here in the simpler. So what's happening is basically it's starting at this point, whatever we set this amount to. So in this case, it's starting at minus 16 semitones, and then it's just gliding up in pitch. That's how you get that kind of thing. The interesting thing that happens here is it kind of slides up to the same pitch as the open hi-hat, actually, like if you listen to this. Like, you kind of get this interesting interplay between those. They may not actually be exactly the same note, but it's one of those things that is happening then in the background of the track, and you may not even be, like, noticing it so much when you're listening to it, but that call and response there creates a lot of fluid motion throughout the track and makes it really feel, like, tied together. Then the last thing inside the solo percussion group is this drum rack, which just has these sounds on it. So yeah, just these 4 little percussion sounds, just some like kind of straight rim shot hit type of sounds, and then this little zap, and I've just put them in a little drum rack here. This is like that last little thing that you may not really even notice when you first hear the track, but it's adding a lot of groove just having these little sparse percussions happening. And then on the group of those percussions all together, I just have some drum bus and a high pass filter. So here's without these. And then with it. So same deal as with the kick and bass. The group processing, you know, it's a bit redundant. We're doing it all throughout the project file and in a lot of tracks. But this is really like just something, there's nothing that can substitute this step in the process to really make stuff sound full and powerful and fat, you know. This is just like one of those things that if you don't know to do it, your tracks just aren't going to sound professional. And when you do it, you could even have something that might not 100% be there, but because you do this, it's going to sound really full and professional. So this is just one of those steps. So I just got some drum bus and the high pass. And then the last thing here are the hi-hats. Or is the hi-hats. So it starts with this little shaker. So this is just this little shaker sample where it's going like that. And yeah, this is the type of thing that maybe like you would bring this in maybe like halfway through the track or something like that. Like, you know, it's just that little extra background to add some nice energy in the mid-range and in the background of the track. Here's without it. So like I said, like maybe this is your intro. And then you bring in the shaker and it picks the whole thing up a notch. After that we have these hi-hats. So as you can hear, this is just this sort of intense hi-hat loop that's happening in the background. It's just 3 little hi-hats. Those 3 inside of this little drum rack here, and then they're just playing like pretty rapid fire. You can hear there's a little bit of a pattern happening there too. It's not just like random. But then this is another thing that's adding a lot of intensity to the background. Here's without it. And then with it. So it's just creating that like jingling high end over top of everything. That adds a lot of energy and groove to the track. And then after that we have the open hi-hat. So this is just your standard sort of open hi-hat. You know, the main thing to keep in mind with this style is just getting a really bright and fat one like this. So I took that one, and then what I've done is I pitched it up, +1, and then we shortened it with the amplitude envelope. This is something pretty typical with this style of house, to get these kind of like tighter hi-hats like this. You just take it and just kind of shorten it, and then it has a lot more impact because it's just a quick t instead of a sh, like long note. And then the last thing here is this fourth hi-hat here. So what this is it's actually this sample. Sort of like this drum machine style hi-hat. And then I've just used the fade in and out to kind of make it this softer sort of like thing that sits over top of everything. And yeah, that's just adding a bit of intensity in the background as well. Here's without that in the mix. And then with it. So you can see all these little layers come together, and that's what's going to make the whole picture sound really big and full. And yeah, and then on the group of those hi-hats, we just have a bit of saturation and a high-pass filter to cut out the lows. Here's without these. And then with them. So it's just giving the last bit of boost to the hi-hats to really make them sound full. And yeah, so that is going to be it for the hi-hats, and that's also going to be it for this video, guys. So, as always, I hope you enjoyed. Make sure to like this video as well as subscribe, and let me know what you think of this video in the comments. Like I said in the beginning, you can get this full project file and samples, MIDI, presets, all that stuff from this video. It's available right at the top of the description on my Bandcamp. This is a great way to support me if you guys have been enjoying these videos. And yeah, thank you so much, everybody, and I will see you tomorrow with another video.